And the people must support the PAP. Most of all, we must trust the PAP.
Trust. That's what Mr. Lee wants you to do. Trust the PAP. But trust is one of those funny words that starts and ends with the same thing. It starts with a promise and ends with that promise. And when promises are not kept, trust becomes as good as the toilet paper after you use it. Now, whether it's a spouse breaking a marriage vow or someone promising to return the money he borrowed but never did, or even something as simple as making an appointment but never bothering to show up, when you break someone's faith in you, trust evaporates. Now, Shakespeare once said, "Don't trust the person who has broken faith once." Well, tonight, my friends, I'm going to show you how the PAP has broken faith with you, not just once, but repeatedly. Tonight, I will demonstrate to you and leave you in absolutely no doubt how the PAP says one thing before the elections and does another after the elections. Tonight, my fellow Singaporeans, you will leave this place knowing exactly what I mean when I tell you these 10 words. Trust is not what you say, it's what you do. Now, on 8th of September 2015, at the lunchtime rally, not far from here, this was during the last GE, Mr. Lee Hsien Loong said this:
We've worked hard for the seniors who deserve peace of mind in their golden years, who deserve to live out their years with dignity.
You mean like this? Or this? What about this? Now, in case you think that these are extreme, isolated examples, or that I'm taking things out of context, let me cite you what Professor Ng Kok Ho of the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy said. Now, Professor Ng is an expert in aging and poverty. He said, I quote, "The poverty rate for elderly persons in the workforce has increased dramatically," unquote. 23% of our elderly in the workforce are paid $1,000 or less a month. You don't believe me? Look it up. It's on the Channel News Asia website on 15th May 2017. The number of seniors who work into their silver years is growing too, especially those from the low income group for whom retirement is an alien concept. Again, not my words. Channel News Asia, 7 May 2017. Are you surprised then that in 2017 the number of suicides among the elderly was at an all-time high? What peace of mind is Mr. Lee talking about? What dignity is he referring to? Trust is not what you say, Mr. Lee. It's what you do. Now, at that same rally, Mr. Lee also said this:
That's why we work with you to solve problems.
But after the elections, he raised water prices, car park charges, ERP rates, town council fees. He introduced the compulsory cash yield payments, up electricity rates, gas tariffs, bus and MRT fares, kindergarten fees, university fees, polytechnic fees, ITE fees. He introduced the sugar tax, carbon emissions tax, digital services tax, and diesel tax. Now, after the next GE, he has promised to raise the GST to 9%. I say again, trust is not what you say, it's what you do. 3, when he was environment minister, Vivian Balakrishnan said in August 2015, you will remember that August 2015 was just a few weeks before the GE. He said there is no need for an adjustment of water price at this point. Then literally, just months after the GE, the new Environment Minister, Masagos Zulkifli, announced that water price would be increased by 30%. He lectured that the consumer must feel the full price of water. Now, on the issue of foreign workers, as far back as 2003, Mr. Lee Hsien Loong assured the nation that we must carefully manage the inflow of foreign workers and ensure that they complement rather than displace Singaporean workers. I repeat, just in case you missed it, Mr. Lee said that foreign workers will not displace Singaporean ones. Now, this was way back in 2003. But barely 10 years later, in 2012, Deputy Prime Minister Tharman admitted that our increasing dependence on foreign workers is not sustainable. Question: if the government had carefully managed the inflow of foreign workers, as Mr. Lee had assured us in 2003, why did Mr. Tharman contradict him by pointing out that the dependence of foreign PMETs has become unsustainable? But perhaps the most damning indictment of Mr. Lee's promise is the latest MOM report, released just a couple of weeks ago. And this is important, so please listen carefully. The MOM report showed that the percentage share of PMETs among all retrenched workers has been rising over the past 9 years. And not only that, the rate of these retrenched PMETs re-entering the workforce is persistently much lower than in other sectors. And yet the PAP continues to sign agreements with other countries like India to have more and more employment pass and S-pass holders into the country, forcing many of our PMETs to drive Grab cars. Even establishment figures like Professor Tommy Koh are questioning the PAP's approach when he said that, quote, "We don't want more Singaporeans to become Grab drivers," unquote. Now let me be absolutely clear. The SDP is not saying that we close our doors completely to foreign workers. We need construction workers and domestic helpers for sure. But why is Mr. Lee indiscriminately letting foreign PMETs and breaking his promise not to displace our own workers? Trust is not what you say, it's what you do. Then there is the repeated assurance that the value of our HDB flats will not go down. Can you remember this? Mr. Lee Hsien Loong said in no uncertain terms, the HDB flat is not just a shelter but also a key investment Singaporeans can enjoy an appreciating asset. Mr. Goh Chok Tong doubled down. He said, quote, "The HDB flat is a key investment asset. Our flats will, not may, will maintain their value. Singaporeans can enjoy an appreciating asset." Mr. Mao Batan chimed in, "An HDB flat grows in value over time." But then after the 2015 elections, National Development Minister Lawrence Wong admitted that HDB prices will not go up but actually decrease until they become zero in value at the end of the 99-year lease. Now listen carefully to what Mr. Vasu Menon, OCBC Bank Vice President, he said, and I quote, "Hoping for an HDB flat to rise in price by the time you retire so that you can unlock the value by selling the flat is not a sound strategy." Straits Times, April 2017. When you mislead the people like this, they lose faith in you. Now, I've just given you 5 concrete, irrefutable instances of how the PAP tells you one thing before the elections and then does another after the elections. I can go on and give you many more examples, but the last MRT train leaves at midnight. If there is one thing that I have shown you beyond any doubt tonight, it is that you cannot trust the PAP to keep its promises, not without a strong opposition in Parliament. The PAP is counting on you, the voters, to forget what it promised you before the elections, so that by the time the next one comes around, it can make the same promises all over again. Well, I've got news for them. The difference is that they are dealing with the SDP, a party that prides itself on doing research. And let's face it, my friends, most of you are busy and you don't have time to follow everything the PAP says and does. This is where the opposition comes in. We track these developments and we get the information for you. This is the job of a responsible opposition, the fundamental role of the opposition, which is to be an effective watchdog on behalf of the people. And this is why I've taken the trouble to quote the PAP directly and to cite the date and source of the facts and figures that I presented. Entertaining you is easy. I can just come up here, make a couple of wisecracks, throw some zingers, and give PAP a good burn, right? And then you have a good laugh and you go home thinking, wow, his speech so funny and so entertaining. But you would not be wiser. You wouldn't be better informed. Having the discipline to do research, now that's hard. But we do this because we believe that facts matter. The truth matters. Facts are not entertaining. They reveal the truth. We do this to reason with you, to make sense to you, so that you know the truth. And when you walk into the voting booth, this GE, you can vote intelligently and I hope courageously. I've said many times before, I want to appeal to your head, not just your heart. I want to change your mind, not just your vote. This is why I spent the last couple of decades of my life writing books. People like Grace Fu, the PAP minister, you will remember. She will mock and ridicule me for what I'm doing. But the truth is that doing research, thinking about the issues, and writing is a full-time job. Selling my books is how I make a living. Now I thank the thousands of you who have bought them, and I encourage those of you who haven't to get a copy. Doing research and writing has kept me going all these years. It has allowed me the independence to stand upright, never bowing, never going on bended knees before the PAP. But as we approach the next GE, there is a warning that I like to sound. Now, I'm not a betting man, but I will wager everything I have on the fact that the PAP strategy is to wait until the elections before drawing the knives and clubs to attack us during the 9 days of campaigning. Look over here. It will keep telling you. Look over here. This is the SDP. They're good for nothing. They're dishonest. They're this, that. They're fly-by-night and so on and so forth. Don't look over here, because this is where the issues are. This is where the SDP's proposals are. Don't worry about this. Just make sure you pay your attention here. Just keep looking over here. And when you listen to them, and you walk into the voting booth, and you vote for them, it's all over. It's back to business as usual. And then you continue to suffer under its policies until the next cycle. The PAP's plan is simple. Criticize, distract, vote, repeat. That's why they give such a short campaign period. That's why they control the media. That's why they keep intimidating and character assassinating the people who criticize them. If you listen to them, it means that they don't have to answer questions and address the issues that really matter to you. The issues that affect you and your family. Now that's exactly why it's important to start now, my fellow Singaporeans. This is why we organize this pre-election rally, to get the word out before the GE is called. We must not wait until the elections is called to do this, because by then it'll be too late. We must spread the word. Now, there is still a whole chunk of the electorate out there who are not familiar with what's going on. To reach out to them, we need your help. All of you here tonight at Hong Lim Park, and the tens of thousands of you who are watching this at home, get involved, get active, because if you don't, then I'm afraid the PAP would have won even before the first vote is cast. In 1968, GE, PAP won 58 seats, opposition 0. In 1972, PAP won 65, opposition again 0. 1976, PAP 69, opposition 0. 1980, PAP 75, opposition 0, and on and on and on. Will we see PAP 90, opposition 0 in the next GE? Now that is a distinct possibility. Now, I'm not trying to scare you, but this is a real possibility. Now imagine the disaster, the nightmare if this were to happen. Now in my last video, I showed you the difference between how the PAP reacted to the 2011 GE results when it lost a few seats and its vote share went down to 60% versus what it did after its results went up to 70% in the last GE. Now when its vote share came down, the PAP started to listen to you, cutting ministers' pay, promising to treat citizens like human beings, increasing the number of buses and so on. But after the last GE, when its votes rose to 70%, it started to up all the taxes and prices I mentioned earlier. If all of you here don't start getting active, starting now, not tomorrow, but tonight, right here, right now, then I guarantee you nothing will change. Your cost of living will continue to go up, the GST will be increased to 9%, foreign PMETs will continue to flood this island and compete for your jobs, and your CPF will still be withheld years after you retire. But if you go to the booths on both sides and sign up as a volunteer, or buy a manifesto, buy a Danny Bear, buy my book, or just make a contribution, then we will have the resources to launch an effective campaign and stand a fighting chance of winning. If you are watching this at home, do the same. You can contribute or buy our merchandise or volunteer online. We've made it easy for you to do this. Tell all your friends about tonight and what you've heard here. Share with everyone what you watch and read on our Facebook. Then encourage them to do the same. Be our activists, our advocates. There is so much to do, so much that you can do. For the sake of this country, for the sake of your future, your children's future, get involved. The worst thing that you can do is to watch from the sidelines and do nothing. We need to tell the people these 10 simple words. Trust is not what you say, it's what you do. When Lee Hsien Loong tells you that he will help you with the cost of living before elections and then raises prices and taxes after the elections, what do you say? Trust is not what you say, it's what you do. When the PAP says that it wants to look after the elderly but makes them work until they die, what do you say? Trust is not what you say, it's what you do. When it tells you that it will carefully manage the inflow of foreign workers, but then flood our hospitals, our banks, our offices with foreign PMETs, how do you respond? Trust is not what you say, it's what you do. Now let's say it loudly and let these 10 words reverberate around this park tonight. Trust is not what you say, it's what you do. Now do the ministers. Do you want the ministers to hear you? Do you want the PAP to pay attention to your fears, your frustrations, your hardship? Then tell them, trust is not what you say, it's what you do. Louder, so that the people from Marsiling to Marine Parade, from Chua Chu Kang to Changi, from Tampines to Chandong Paga can hear you. Trust is not what you say, it's what you do. When Mr. Lee shouts,
I ask for your trust. Vote for the candidates you trust.
What do you shout back? One more time, with all your might, with all your strength, so that he can hear you at the Istana. What do you say? Thank you, my fellow Singaporeans. I'll see you at the elections. And good night.